Hello, everyone, and welcome to another story time brought to you by me, Miss Seisha. Okay, I am so happy to be back because I am reading now to you all this book, JD and the Family Business, written by J. Dillard, illustrated by Akeem S. Roberts. All right, who does the best hair in the family? Okay, this is what they're talking about in this book. So this is like almost like a part two to the Great Barber, JD and the Great Barber Battle. And for those of you who already have listened to that read aloud, you already know that JD held it down in Meridian, Mississippi. Okay, he's the best barber in town, y'all. So now his sister has came to him with a suggestion for the summer, starting a YouTube channel showcasing him cutting hair and her doing hair, okay? And so now we're about to see what is that going to look like, because guess what? JD actually started working at Heart and Son. This is the same barber that he beat out, but he actually has a chair in there and he's cutting hair. So we about to see how this is going to pan out. Is he going to still stay at Heart and Son and do the YouTube channel? Well, let's find out. Chapter 3, Poof! Every Saturday, I do my morning chores, catch a couple of cartoons, and head to Heart and Son. My family had taught me to always be on time. We had so many people, jobs, schools, and activities to keep track of, and only one car. So if someone was late, it threw everything off. When I went to work at Heart and Son, I was always there 5 minutes before noon. Heart and Son was owned by Henry Sr. and Henry Jr. Henry Sr. was a tall, skinny old man, maybe older than the earth. He always reminded me of a tall blade of grass with square, oversized glasses, a small, neat afro, and cargo pants held up high with a belt. He worked early in the morning and would finish at noon on the dot, so I could take over his chair. He cut mostly older clientele who he had known for years. Henry Jr. was shorter and rounder than his dad. He had offered me a job after I beat him in the Great Barber Battle. "Have a good day, JD," Henry Sr. said as he patted me on my head on the way out the door. At the barbershop, people talked a lot about sports. Meridian didn't have any pro sports teams. In fact, the whole state of Mississippi didn't have any. So folks in town always pulled for the closest option. Since it was summer, there was nothing more exciting to talk about than baseball. "The Braves are in first place again," I heard Mr. Thomas say. He's one of Henry Jr.'s regulars. "Hey, they never get past the first round of the playoffs anyway," Henry Jr. replied. "I'm just waiting for my Saints to start back up." I wanted to play Little League baseball too, but unlike Pee Wee football, you had to pay for your own equipment. And Mom had been on a budget when we first moved in with my grandparents, and she became a full-time student again. Henry Jr. was responsible for keeping the shop going during the day until it closed at 7. On a good Saturday, I would average around 10 haircuts, depending on what styles people wanted. A simple fade or Caesar cost $7.50 for a kid and $15 for an adult. But more and more people wanted complicated styles with color, dreads, and designs. I knew how to cut designs, and I charged more for that. My designs would look great on YouTube. My last client of the day was a kid named Kelsey. Kelsey was about to start high school. I knew who he was because he played rec football. In Meridian, there were lots of open fields, and spontaneous games of football with kids of all ages would just pop up. I liked playing against big kids because it made me better. "Hey, Kelsey, what's up, man? What do you want to do today?" I asked him. "I want a number 2 even all over," he told me, pointing at the numbered chart of hairstyles on the wall. Kelsey had big waves in his hair, so all I had to do was put a size 2 guard on the clippers and cut in the direction his hair laid down. As I brushed the hair off Kelsey's cape, I knew my shift would be over soon and I'd have to talk to Henry Jr. I started to wonder if maybe I was making a big mistake by leaving. One of the things I liked most about working at Heart and Son was that Henry Jr. didn't treat me like a little kid. That would be hard to give up. Hey, JD, are you going to have time to meet up at the field this summer? Kelsey asked, snapping me out of my thoughts. Well, I hope so, after I get out of vacation Bible school next week. But my Saturdays are kind of full now that I work here, I told him. Oh, man, that's too bad, Kelsey said. Hey, there's nothing wrong with making money. Henry Jr. had been listening to us. JD is already ahead of most kids his age. He came over and clapped my shoulder with his hand. Boy, JD, you are my first and best employee, Henry Jr. said as Kelsey put on his backpack and got ready to leave. All these years, it was just me and my dad. So many of my barbershop owner friends in other cities tell me horror stories about how they hire folks and then the next weekend they are just gone. Poof. I thought about what I had to say to Henry Jr. today. I'd be another poof to him soon. That's right now, Mr. Thomas said. These days it's hard to find good help. Now my stomach started to ache. With these new apps and websites and things, it's like any barber can just promote themselves without having to work in a shop, Henry Jr. said. I felt a lump in my throat. Could Henry Jr. read my mind? I had forgotten about Kelsey when I heard a quarter land in my tip jar. Thanks for the cut, Kelsey said. Maybe I'll see you around this summer at the field. Maybe not. As Henry Jr. finished up with Mr. Thomas, I cleaned up my area. I've got this, I told myself. After Henry Jr. locked the door and started counting his money, he spoke up. It seems like something is on your mind, JD, he said. You usually talk more when you're working. Yes, sir, I told him. Well, what is it? I turned over my tip jar and put the day's earnings in my pocket. Let me guess, he started. I bet you want to be outside with your friends this summer, don't you? I know I did when I was a kid. Maybe Henry Jr. could read my mind. It's something like that, I replied. Henry Jr. went on to tell me how much fun he used to have in the summers as a kid in Meridian, hunting, fishing, and finding swimming holes. If you want to take the summer off to play with your friends, I'll understand, he said. Are you sure? I asked. I don't just want to poof, disappear. Henry Jr. stopped sweeping up the hair around his chair and looked me in the eye. There will always be a chair here for you if you want to come back in the fall, he said. Thanks, Henry Jr., I told him. I learned so much from you. You're an amazing barber and a cool guy. I paused as a worry came into my head. Are you still going to be able to make enough money, though? Little man, the shop has been here for over 50 years, and you've helped us bring in more people, Henry Jr. said with a laugh. You go and enjoy your summer. And just like that, my schedule had opened up. It was time to try a new adventure. Wow, y'all. Oh my gosh. Were you all expecting that? Look at that. Wow. You see how things happen? Sometimes you get worried. But, and as we know, when you put your trust and faith in God, God will surely make a way. And sure enough, he didn't even have to worry about saying, you know what, I'm going to leave and I'm about to start something new. Henry Jr. was already on it. He could tell, right? That wisdom from the elders. Wow. That was an awesome chapter. I hope you all felt the same way. Now we need to see what's going to happen. How is this YouTube channel going to pan out for JD and his sister and his friends? Do you all think it's going to be successful? Well, I'll tell you all this. I hope it is. And I love to see my young people trying to become entrepreneurs. So you all make sure that you tune in, come back, because I'm going to be reading chapter 4. All right. And make sure that you like, subscribe, and share this video. And please make sure that you read for at least 30 minutes a day. Take care. Peace.